At this time, we'll call the July 17th, 2019 meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals to order. May we have a roll call, please?
Ms. Chester, Mr. Cho, Ms. McLaughlin,
Here.
Mr. Roosh,
Here.
Ms. Uteman, Mr.
Coming.
Warbrun,
Coming.
Here.
Here's Nancy, so.
Ms. Uteman, Mr. Welch.
Here. We have a quorum. Are there any changes to the agenda? No. At this time, I would ask that we review the minutes and seek their approval.
I move that we approve the minutes of the meeting on June 19, 2019.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor of approval of the minutes indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed by the same? Minutes are approved. Are there any communications?
Just as associated with the cases this evening.
All righty. At this time, then, I would ask that anybody that wishes to be heard stand and be sworn or affirm. This does not require you to speak, but unless you do get sworn in, you can't speak. So if anybody wants to speak, you need to stand up. Do you swear or affirm that any testimony you give will be true and accurate to the best of your ability?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. At this time, we will call for hearing the not only the continued public hearing, but the new public hearings. All the hearings are concerning the same property. So at this time, I will call for hearing ZBA-2019-C-02, a request by Gustavo Batista.
Yes, sir.
For a conditional use permit to allow a contractor shop at 802 North Goodwin Avenue in the B1 Neighborhood Business Zoning District. At this time, we will also call for hearing ZBA-2019-Major-03, a request by Gustavo Batista for a major variance to allow a reduction in the number of parking spaces required for a contractor shop at 802 North Goodwin Avenue in the B1 Neighborhood Business Zoning District. And at this time, we will call for hearing ZBA-2019-Major-04, a request by Gustavo Batista for a major variance to allow parking in the required front yard at 802 North Goodwin Avenue in the B1 Neighborhood Business Zoning District. Do we have a staff report?
Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Gustavo Batista is requesting conditional use permit to allow a contractor shop. The applicant is also applying for two major variances for that contractor shop. The parking regulations in the zoning ordinance require one parking space for every 400 square feet. The space that the applicant has on the lot currently allows for 3 legal parallel parking spaces and legal access width, and then one variance to allow parking in the front yard. We have, let me go to location. The location of this site is at Goodwin and Hill Street in Urbana, Illinois. As you can see here, it is right now listed as commercial as its land use designation. It's surrounded by a duplex, single-family home, and to the north, a parking lot that's used by the elementary school in the neighborhood. The zoning map for the area, this is a B1 property that is surrounded by R2, single-family residential zoning district. And the future land use map for this area is residential. Do note that the B1 zoning district is meant to be a residential zoning district, and for purposes of commercial properties and business properties that are going to be conducive and convenient to the surrounding neighborhood. And here's the proposed site plan from the applicant, Gustavo Batista. You can see by the site plan you have 3 parallel parking spaces, one at the top closest to the entrance that it would be an accessible parking spot, a fenced storage area, and according to our zoning ordinance, upon a building permit, one would need to provide screening for the residents next door and in R2 property to the north, even though it's being used as a parking lot. And the applicant has agreed to provide said screening for the location. And then we've got the applicant's applications. As you can see here, the table 5-1, Table of Uses, identifies contractor shop with showroom. I will note that there is no showroom currently being proposed by the applicant, but this is the closest use on our Table of Uses that applies to the applicant's property. And you can see B1 here is needing a conditional use permit. The criteria, which brings us to the criteria for a conditional use. And I'm going to go to that. The first criteria is that the proposed use is conducive to the public convenience at that location. The requested the conditional use permit is conducive to the public convenience because the proposed contractor shop will have limited traffic. The service, an electrical contractor, is a professional service that provides benefits for neighbors, other residents in Urbana, and the larger region. Expanding the business in its current location in Mr. Bautista's home is infeasible. At this time, I'd like to mention that Mr. Bautista has a home occupation permit with the City of Urbana that he reached out for in 2015. It's been approved, and he's been operating with no complaints to his property. If any expansion to that home occupation exceeds the amount of the intensity and the regulations as identified in Section 5-12 of home occupation in our zoning ordinance, it is generally recommended that a person find a business or commercial property. Number 2, the requirements, that the proposed use is designed, located, and proposed to be operated so that it will not be unreasonably injurious or detrimental to the district in which it shall be located or otherwise injurious to the public welfare. The proposed use is designed, located, and proposed to be operated in a manner similar to the surrounding B1 neighborhood business zoning district. The applicant's proposed site plan will keep the building where it is and keep the parking in the front yard if the related variance requests are approved. B1 properties are meant to exist within neighborhoods, and this property is in the heart of a residential neighborhood. Neighborhood businesses play an important role in residential areas. Number 3, the proposed use conforms to the applicable regulations and standards of and preserves the essential character of the district in which it shall be located, except where such regulations and standards are modified by Section 7-3. The proposed use conforms to all regulations of the B1 district, except for the parking requirements, which the 2 variance requests will address if granted. The proposed site plan, which was Exhibit D that we just took a look at, shows the required accessible parking location and the required screening needed to establish any use on a B1 property. Mr. Batista will work with the city staff to ensure that all other requirements are met prior to the issuance of a new certificate of occupancy. So I would like to mention right now, you should have gotten a handout, and I think everybody in the audience did, that we have revised staff findings and proposed conditions for the conditional use permit. For the 2, and you're going to have to, we're just going to go back there. For the 2, I'm going to read them right now. 1, the proposed parking, fences, and storage area must be constructed to conform to the attached site plan and specifications of the zoning ordinance. And number 2, the applicant is granted variances or otherwise meets the zoning requirements for parking. So, now I'm going to talk about the major variance, the 2 major variances that we have proposed with this. So as you can see here from the table 6-3, development regulations by district, you can see that the required yard for the front yard of a B1 property is 15 feet. Parking in, I wanted to point out really fast that B2, B3, B4, U, IN1, IN2 all have a exemption from parking in the required front yard, and as long as they meet the buffer yard requirements that are set aside also in a separate section of the zoning ordinance. B1 is excluded, and the applicant is asking for a 0-foot setback in the front yard for parking, in order to utilize the existing conditions on the lot, renovate the building, and use the existing concrete on the lot for parking. I'm now going to read the criteria for a major variance. This criteria addresses both major variance requests. The first criteria, are there special circumstances or special practical difficulties with reference to the parcel concerned in carrying out the strict application of the ordinance? The zoning ordinance requires a 15-foot front yard for the B1 zoning district, and no parking may be built within the front yard. Yard lines are showed by dashed lines on the proposed site plan on Exhibit D. To provide parking and at an access aisle that conforms to the zoning regulations would consume the entire buildable area of the lot. This would require the demolition of the existing building, the southern access drive, and the former parking area, which seems like an excessive undertaking when Mr. Bautista could instead be allowed to reuse the existing building and parking areas. Do note that this lot is very small, and that's why the yard setback size for B1 is consuming a lot of the space, and without any exemption for parking, that allows very little space of the lot to be used for building and parking. So the lot size is very important here. 2, the proposed variance will not serve as a special privilege because the variance requested is necessary due to the special circumstances relating to the land or structure involved or to be used for occupancy thereof, which is not generally applicable to other lands or structures in the same district. The proposed parking-related variances will not be a special privilege to the applicant. The variances would not eliminate parking requirements, but would acknowledge that parking space is very limited and the site cannot readily hold 4 parking spaces. The property can hold 3 parallel spaces and an access aisle with the current configuration of parking in the front yard along Goodwin Avenue. As the applicant has indicated, the contractor shop will not have regular customers. 4 parking spaces is not necessary to meet the parking demand of the site. Number 3, the variance request is not the result of a situation or condition having been knowingly or deliberately created by the petitioner. The variance request is due to the existing conditions of the lot. The required yards take up a sizable portion of the lot. Meanwhile, there are no exceptions to allow parking in required yards in the B1 zoning district, though exceptions are allowed in every other business district. The applicant would like to use the 1,600 square foot building. When the property was first developed in 1936 as a gas station, the use and location of the parking in the front yard was not regulated. In 1978, the owner of the gas station, then a legally nonconforming use, received permission from the city to remodel the nonconforming business as the use was found to be beneficial to the neighborhood. Now the lot is difficult to develop due to its small size and the requirements for most business uses, including parking and yard setbacks. 4, the variance will not alter the essential character of the neighborhood. If granted, the variance would not alter the essential character of the neighborhood. Parking is allowed in the front yard of other lots in the neighborhood. The proposed parking area has existed since at least 1978, and the request will maintain what has existed for decades. Number 5, the variance will not cause a nuisance to the adjacent property. The variance should not cause a nuisance as the proposed business use will be filling a vacant property, and the property owner plans to make improvements to the property. If the variance is not granted, the building would likely have to be demolished and rebuilt for any use to meet the B1 parking requirements and yard setbacks. The parking requirements for B1 are the same requirements for B2 and B3 properties, which are zones tended to have much higher levels of car traffic. Providing less parking for a property in a residential neighborhood may reduce the impact and nuisance of the property, as it could discourage car traffic to the site and require less of the lot to be paved. Number 6, the variance generally represents the minimum deviation from requirements of the zoning ordinance necessary to accommodate the request. The proposed variances are a minimum deviation, as the request is to maintain what already exists. The applicant will keep the existing car parking area, but will ensure that the parking spaces provided conform with the zoning ordinance. The applicant will meet all other requirements from the property. And I've got a summary of staff findings. Some of these you'll find, the ones that pertain to the conditional use permit are the ones that have been changed, and you'll see on the page in front of you. The staff findings that relate to the variances have not changed. First off, the application has been signed by the sole owner of the property. It proposes to operate the contractor shop at 802 West Goodwin Avenue in the B1 Neighborhood Business Zoning District. The Urbana zoning ordinance allows the use of contractor shop with a conditional use permit in the B1 district. Mr. Bautista also requests a major variance to reduce the amount of parking required from 4 to 3 spaces, and a major variance to allow car parking in the required front yard. Second, the building on the subject property is 1,600 square feet. The property was first built in 1936 and then remodeled in 1978. The property has undergone numerous owners and most recently had been vacant for some years. The applicant has been operating a business from his home office with a home occupation permit since 2015. In establishing the new use, the applicant will conform to all other development regulations in the zoning ordinance, excluding the 2 variances requested. Number 3, the proposed use is conducive to the public convenience because it will be used. It'll be using the existing building and parking lot and draw limited traffic to the location. Number 4, the proposed use would not be a detriment to the B1's neighborhood's business zoning district because the contractor shop provides a service to the neighborhood and surrounding area. Number 5, the proposed use is consistent with applicable regulations and standards of and preserves essential character of the B1 neighborhood business zoning district except for parking requirements, which the 2 variance requests will address if granted. The applicant will install the required accessible parking location and required screening needed to establish a contractor shop. Back to the memo, the variance, staff findings. Mr. Bautista also requests a major variance to reduce the amount of parking required from 4 to 3 spaces and a major variance to allow car parking in the required front yard. 6, the variances will allow the existing building and existing concrete pad to be used. 7, the variances requested would not serve as a special privilege to the property owner if granted, as there are special circumstances relating to the land, such as location of the existing building, parking lot, and the size of the location, the lot size of the location. 8, the property owner did not deliberately create the situation. 9, the variances will not alter the essential character of the neighborhood. 10, the variances will not create a nuisance. And 11, the variances represent a minimum deviation from the zoning ordinance. Now I'm going to go over the options for Zoning Board of Appeals. Zoning Board of Appeals has the following options for case ZBA 2019-C02. 1, approve the conditional use permit, or approve the conditional use permit along with any conditions as are appropriate for the public health, safety, and welfare and to carry out the purposes of the zoning ordinance, or 3, deny the conditional use permit. I'm going to go over the options for both major variance 3 and major variance 4. 1, forward the major variance request to City Council with recommendation to approve the variance as requested based on findings outlined in this memorandum. Or 2, forward the major variance to City Council with a recommendation to approve the variance with certain terms and conditions, and if so, articulate all terms, conditions, and findings. Or 3, deny the major variance request, and if so, articulate findings supporting denial. Lastly, I'd like to go over the staff recommendation. Based on the analysis and findings presented above, and without the benefit of considering additional evidence that may be presented at the public hearing, staff recommends the Zoning Board of Appeals approve the conditional use permit, and with the following condition. And here, again, I will refer to the additional sheet for these two conditions. The proposed parking, fences, and storage area must be constructed to conform to the attached site plan and specifications of the zoning ordinance. And 2, the applicant, if granted, granted variances or otherwise meets zoning requirements for parking.
Thank you.
You should also probably point out that we did receive a number of communications which have been distributed.
Yes, I was going to indicate that. You all have additional evidence by way of the communications that were placed at your respective seats. With that, are there any questions for staff? Hearing none, thank you.
Thank you.
Does the petitioner wish to be heard?
Yes.
Please come forward.
Thank you.
You have to sign the sheet.
Oh, this,
Yes.
okay.
You can be seated.
Okay. First, I'd like to thank everyone for hearing my request. And I just want to talk a little bit about, just tell you a little bit about who I am and what I want to do. So I live in the community. I've been in that community for 15 years. I bought several homes in that community. My family members live in that community, my mother, my brothers. And we bought some homes that were a little bit, run down, and we've improved them. I'm an electrician. I've been doing this 20 years. I love where I live. And my girls live there. And, I've outgrown my house. My wife says, hey, we got to do something else because I'm tired of having your stuff everywhere. It's getting a little dangerous for my kids playing with my screwdrivers. And so we had the opportunity. We saw this little building. And this building has been run down and been closed for as long as I have lived there, which is about 15 years. So I thought it was a great opportunity to still stay home so I can be with my family and run my business. And my business is a small company. We do electric work. I have wired about 10 homes in that neighborhood for Habitat for Humanity for free. So I believe in that neighborhood, and we give back. The thing with my business is you call me, I come to your house, you tell me what's wrong, I fix it. That's what I do. I don't try to sell you lights. I don't try to, so there's no need for you to come. I just need somewhere where I can have my paperwork, my computer, not have my little girls tear everything up and me try to find where that receipt is at. And to safely store my material. As the lady said, nothing will ever be outside because electrical stuff can't be outside. It's, copper wire is expensive and it'll probably go away. So I humbly ask for this variance, and I'm willing to do whatever we need to do. And I mean, the place is beautiful now. I've got plants out there. I'm willing to do if they say, hey, we need to put some trees here. I love trees. Let's put some trees out there. It's going to be a beautiful corner, and I've gone around to some of the neighbors, and they know me. I mean, I've lived there. And, a lot of people are excited because they're going to have somewhere. And I said, hey, you got a problem? You see that truck? That's my truck. Come see me. We'll help you. So that's kind of in a nutshell, what I would like to do with that area. I believe in that area. And that's why I'm investing myself and my time and my money in that area. Because I love that area. That's, really a little bit about me. I don't know if that helped.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions for the petitioner? No? Hearing none, thank you, sir. Is there anyone present who wishes to be heard in favor of the petition? Are you opposed, sir? Okay, I'll get to you in just a second. Hearing no one else in favor, at this time now, you can come forward, sir. Anyone opposed to the petition, come forward. You need to sign in, sir.
Okay. Okay. Is that on? My name is Ernest Mosley. I've lived in that neighborhood ever since the 60s. I know more about that neighborhood about anybody. But the problem thing is, we don't want the business that have a lot of vehicles up there on that corner. Because we know once they start having a lot of vehicles on that corner, then we start having a lot of problems. So he says he's been in the neighborhood 15 years. I've been in the neighborhood 40-some years. I know from the building up. So what I'm saying is, I've talked to neighbors and folks in the neighborhood. I have a list of some that don't agree with him to what he's saying.
Would you like to present your list?
I sure would.
Okay.
We know once he parks all his cars and trucks and trailers up there in front of that building, then people are going to start trying to break in. The next they're going to try to break in our houses. Then we're going to have problems like years ago. We don't want that. So if he start to changing things or making it more room for him to have more cars, more trucks, more, then we're going to have more problems. Besides that, that building is close to the schoolhouse where the kids are back and forth. And if he has the trucks going in and out, you don't know what's going to happen. So that's all I got to say about it.
Hold on, sir. Does anyone have any
Any
questions?
questions?
Sir, are you thinking there will be more than 3 cars parked
I know
there?
there will be. He's already had more than one vehicle parked there.
I know, but,
And he's had it parked, he's had trucks all parked there, he had trailers all parked there, he's had a dump truck parked there. So we're afraid he's gonna continue having more there.
is it possible all those trucks were there while he was doing the remodeling? And
No, he did not remodel that building. The people that sold it to him remodeled it.
I've got a quick clarification. I do want to address the dump truck concern. The city did notice the dump truck, and we talked to Gustavo Batista about it. And within 12 to 24 hours, the dump truck was removed from the property, and we have not seen the dump truck since. So currently, he's in good standing with that said dump truck violation.
If I may ask Mr. Bautista, what was the dump truck necessary for at the time in that incident?
I was gonna bring some gravel in,
Okay.
and I wasn't really aware that I thought when I bought the building, I could do what I need to do, and then that's when, I was approached and saying, hey, you gotta get a conditional use permit, and the city of Urbana knows me, we do a lot of work in the city, and we follow the rules, because without rules, you're gonna have chaos. And they said, hey, you can't have it, okay, it's gone, hasn't been back since. I was gonna have a friend bring in some gravel, so we were gonna fence in an area, just so it wouldn't be muddy, and we could have some ladders, fenced in. And a lot of the vehicles that were there, we were moving our stuff into the building. I have 2 trucks and an enclosed trailer. The enclosed trailer is always at our job sites. That's how we can maintain security for our material and equipment.
Anyone have any further questions for? I'm sorry, your name again? I'm sorry.
Mosley,
Any-
Ernest Mosley.
Anyone have any further questions for Mr. Mosley?
If anything you want to know about that neighborhood, I know it.
Go ahead.
And Mr. Mosley, if the city could control any violations that you might see and call in, do you feel that would give you some assurance that any violation could be corrected if you were to report something?
Well, that was tried years ago, didn't work. On different things around the neighborhood.
So it's part of your concern that if you did make a complaint, the city would not respond?
Would not respond, right.
So, I guess, would the city respond to his report of a violation, or?
Of course, and with something like a conditional use and with variances, it becomes a little more serious if there are violations, because without compliance, we could revoke the conditional use permit, which obviously would have serious repercussions on a business. They wouldn't be able to operate.
So that would give the concerned neighbors some assurance that if there are violations, the city could crack down because this is a conditional use.
That's correct. I mean, we could crack down anyway, but there's
Right.
an extra little stick
Yeah.
there, yes.
Okay.
Mr. Mosley, I have a question. Are you opposed to any business being in this building or this particular type of business?
I'm not opposed to any business. But with that business, with trucks and things, I'm opposed to too many of them. If there was just a business there, that's fine. That's not, business is not gonna have trucks and things parked all night there for anybody to try to break in it. They're closed in the evening or they're closed at night.
All right. Thank you. Any further questions? Mr. Batista, you are the petitioner here, and I will afford you any opportunity you would like to respond to what's been raised.
Oh, sorry, so that perhaps, could you excuse the other?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Mosley, you can return. Thank you. Come forward, sir.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity. Mr. Mosley approached me. Mr. Mosley sells barbecue meat or sandwiches there on the weekends, and he told me he's done that for a long time. It's great. Whether he has a permit or not, that's not my concern. That's not my business. And he says, "Hey, I have a right to be here." I said, "Well, I don't know anything about that." He says to me, "Did somebody tell you that I have a right to be here?" I said, "Nobody's told me that." I said, "I bought that building. The building's my building." I said, "I just sell meat here on the weekends." I go, "That's fine. But if my truck is parked here, or somebody falls, or somebody gets injured, I'm going to be liable for that." So that's a concern, and I think that's when unfortunately, I could not give him the opportunity to continue his business there. And I feel bad for that, but I cannot. It's a liability for me and for my vehicles. Somebody comes through there to get a sandwich from him and hits one of my vehicles or falls, that's going to be my problem. And I understand his concern about my vehicles being broken into. That can happen anywhere. But I'll tell you what, the neighborhood's not that bad, because I've lived in that neighborhood, and my vehicles have been in front of my house. And if that happens, they probably needed the things more than I did. And that's not going to deter me. I'm not afraid. We're going to have that. You can have that in the best neighborhoods around. It doesn't matter where you're at. I'm not afraid. So I feel for Mr. Mosley. You know, I'm just trying to, and I can prove I'm trying to help the neighborhood because I wire houses for free for Habitat. They've built 10 houses in that area. People call me and they say, hey, we need some electrical service. Okay. I take into consideration the people's economical status. We're here to help you. So, you know, I have 2 trucks. I've operated out of my home, which is, I only live 3 blocks from this business. And it's just me. You're looking at the whole team here. There's no in and out. I go there in the morning, I get my computer up, I look at my work orders, and then I go to work, and I don't come home till 10 o'clock at night. That's the extent of the traffic there. No material gets delivered there, because that's not the way we operate. You call me, you say, hey, I have a problem. I'm out on the field. Okay, I'll get to you. We'll get there. So I don't think it's going to be a nuisance. And, you know, and I've asked for some neighborhood people, you know, I've gone around and I'm willing to do whatever we need to do. You know, and there's been a lot of people that are excited. They know me. So his concern with people breaking in and breaking into other homes, I don't think, there's a lot of value in those trucks and in that equipment in that building. I just don't think that that's going to cause other people to want to break in their homes. You know, and that's a very, I think there's a lot of police traffic there. You know, I feel safe there. And that's why I live there. So I'm not just some person coming from out of town or from somewhere else. I live 4 blocks from there. So I hope that helps in some way.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Come forward. Come forward, Mr. Mosley.
I live.
And we got to wait till you get up to the mic, sir.
I live 1 block from there. The people I talk to is around that block. Those are the names that you got there. So who did he talk to? Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion, questions?
Somebody over there, the lady in white.
All right, you'll have to come forward and let me swear you in. I take it you are opposed, correct? You want to speak in opposition? All right, well, come forward. Hold on.
Oh.
Do you swear that any testimony you give will be true and accurate to the best of your belief? All right, sign in, please.
My name is Joanne Carter, and I live across the street. I have lived there over 60 years. I'm sort of opposed and sort of not opposed. I'm opposed because I don't think that having big trucks in the neighborhood all the time would benefit our neighborhood, especially since we have the school down there and we have a lot of kids in the neighborhood that walk to school. As of late, I haven't seen a lot of those trucks that he started out over there with. I've only seen like a trailer and maybe 1 big truck. But is there a law that you have to have things posted around your building, like your name of the building, and the only encounter, and it wasn't with this gentleman, I think it was a worker there that I had, like I said, I've lived in the neighborhood over 60 years, and everybody in the neighborhood would like to park over there. And they posted some signs on some of my relatives' cars that were parked over there saying that if you continue to park over here, that your car will be towed. And I kept the note. I went over there and I inquired about, did they put the note on there or was somebody trying to be funny? And the gentleman told me that they did put the note on there. And I told him, you know, about people parking over there in the neighborhood. I said, you know, but it's your property, and, you know, if you choose not to have people park over there, that's fine. But there's no signs posted. I can't go around and tell everybody in the neighborhood that has their family park over there, you can't park over there. They have no signs over there saying, this is private property, you can't park over there anymore. So that kind of touched me in a bad way. I mean, a new business coming into the neighborhood. But like you say, there's down on the next corner, there's been a construction business down there for years. They don't have big trucks or anything like that. They have an office down there, and their workers come and park down there, and they leave. No problem. We've never had any problem with them. But where it comes to problem is the trucks. We don't really appreciate having big trucks in the neighborhood. And who he's talked to, I don't know. I've never met the gentleman before. But like I said, I live across the street, and he said he's lived in the neighborhood for 16 years. I've never met him, and I don't know anybody else. I think he's met my cousin who lives across the street because he wanted to know why people were going around signing something against the business. But as far as somebody having a business there, I mean, that's fine. My objection, and some of the neighbors I've talked to, objections are the big trucks in the neighborhoods. And like I said, maybe the last couple of weeks he's kind of eliminated that, maybe one truck and trailer over there. But that's like a construction business. I question if this was a more expensive neighborhood, would they allow this type of business right in the center of the neighborhood? So, you know, that's my only objection.
Hold on, any questions? No? All right, thank you.
I'm sorry, I do have a question.
Go ahead.
When you say big trucks, do you mean like large, like work trucks with his signage, or did you mean like some of the construction trucks that might have been redoing stuff in the building?
Not trucks working on the building, they're work trucks.
Okay.
I mean, and like he says, I see them sometime. Now, before, the trucks were parked there constantly. Now, it's kind of not been constantly. Like, and I see them come in the morning, and they, you know, maybe pull up in trucks and stuff like that, and take off again. But before, the trucks were over there permanently. It seems like he's kind of eliminated that now and stuff. But my biggest concern is if you're going to be in our neighborhood and you don't want people on your property, then post some signs to say so or something like that so that people will know you don't want people on your property.
Okay, yeah, I understand that.
So would you be comfortable then if we added as a condition that he post a sign saying no parking, reserved parking only?
Oh, well, I would be comfortable with that, but I would be comfortable if there were no large trucks parked over there. I don't want construction, you know, sit on my porch and look across and see big construction trucks in the neighborhood. I mean, it's a residential neighborhood. We've never had any type of business like right there that had construction trucks. I don't think anybody would appreciate that. I mean, right there in your neighborhood. But, I mean, I would think as a business, if you didn't want people on your property, that you would have signs posted. So,
Thank you, Ms. Carter.
Will you be giving Mr. Batista another chance to respond to this new evidence that's been introduced?
Certainly.
Thank you again. And I understand her concern. And when she says big trucks, we're a small company. I have a van that has our logo, which is a B, on it. And they were there in the beginning because I was concerned. We had just bought the property. I wanted people to know that it's not vacant. So nobody gets curious and says, oh, let me go in this building and see if I can cause some mischief. So I put a truck there to kind of let people know, you know, that maybe, you know, the curious rascals, there's somebody probably in there. I'm not going to go in there. So our big trucks are vans. It's a van. I own a van. And again, you know, I have a trailer, but the trailer is always on our job sites where we're doing work. That's what we do. And the issue started because one day on a Sunday I arrived to do a little bit of work, and there's a few cars parked there. So my concern is, where are these cars? What are they doing here? You know, if something happens to their cars again, then I might be responsible for those. They're on my property. If somebody breaks a window or whatever, that's not something I want to be responsible for. And, you know, in the beginning, I didn't know what the rules and standards were, and we were moving in. Later, I found out, you know, I said, okay, I'm going to go get a permit to find out what I need, and they said, oh, you got to have this, you got to have that. Okay. Okay. Whatever I need to have, we're going to do. So, you know, we're not being mean. You know, I wish you could park there. If you could park there, that's fine. They probably have parked there for a long time. I understand. I would be upset too. But there's going to be limited parking. So if they park there, then when I come home from work and I want to park my van and go home, or when I want to park my car to go inside, where do I park? So that's all.
I have a question,
Yes,
just
sir.
for the record. When did you purchase this property?
Oh, I think probably, I'm going to say 4 weeks.
4 weeks ago?
Because I've only made one mortgage payment.
4 or 5 weeks ago?
Yes.
And so all of the, whatever renovation needed to take place has been in the last 4 or 5 weeks?
Some of it was started and we finished. We did all the flooring on the inside, the drywall, the painting, put up blinds, put planters outside, got rid of a lot of weeds. Yeah.
And so I take it from that there may have been some trucks present that will not need to be present as we go forward?
Yes, sir.
Trucks that had to do with renovations and the like?
Yes, sir.
Okay. That's all I have. Thank you.
Can I sit down?
You can sit down. Anyone else have any comment, questions? Then I believe we are at the point in the proceedings where we're ready to call these various cases for motions or the like. First was, we have 3 of them that we combined into one, but we're going to vote on them all 3 separately because the conditional use permit has a different voting standard than the other 2. So we'll start with ZBA 2019-C-02. Do we have any motions?
May I just ask a question?
Yes, go ahead.
When this was used as a gas station, I assume there was a lot of traffic. True?
Correct. And there is no complaints on file from the city of Urbana. The city of Urbana has not received any complaints when it was used as a gas station.
And that was in 1978, that ended?
That was when the most recent time it was remodeled with under a new owner. When it was built in 1936, the owner stayed with the property for a very long time, and in 1976, he left town with supposedly a lot of debts that were owned. And in 1978, someone went through the process. They came to the city, they went to public hearings, and they worked with the city to establish the gas station with a remodel.
And do you know when I presume the gas tanks have been removed and filled in, because that's pretty standard. Do you know when that was done?
I do not know when that was done.
Go ahead.
Just to clarify, it is not in our purview to determine what types of vehicles use any property, correct?
Correct.
I mean, there could be a discussion on limitations on size of trucks, if that's what you're asking, but only because it is a conditional use permit for a contractor shop. So it could be considered customary to consider numbers and sizes of trucks that might be associated with the business.
And just out of curiosity, if there are vehicles being parked there beyond the 3 parking spots, that's a problem anyway, right? So that would be violating the conditional use anyway, right?
Well, they would be probably blocking the legal parking spaces or in a drive aisle or in a, an area that a fire truck might need to get to.
So we're already limiting them to 3, is what I'm saying. Okay.
Go ahead, man.
I got one question about B1. Is that a parking requirement? I guess that was what it was described, 6,000 square feet, needs 4 spaces, but in B1, is there no parking requirement?
There is a parking requirement in B1, B2, and B3. Tears at my heart a little bit, but.
I would like to move ZBA 2019 CO2 for approval with the conditions that the proposed parking, fences, and storage area must generally conform to the attached site plan and specifications of the zoning ordinance and what we've seen today, and with also the condition that the applicant is granted variances or otherwise meets the zoning requirements for parking.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded. Call it for vote.
Second.
Mr. Cho?
Yes.
Ms. McLaughlin?
Yes.
Mr. Roosh?
Yes.
Ms. Utman?
Yes.
Mr. Warmbrad?
Yes.
And Mr. Welch?
Yes. That motion, that carries, and that goes into effect then. Now we will call ZBA 2019-Major-03. Do we have any motions?
I move that we forward the major variance request to City Council with the recommendation to approve the variance as requested based on the findings outlined in this memorandum for case CBA 2019 MAJ-04.
3 first.
Oh, I'm sorry, what?
03.
3 first.
What do you mean 3 first? Oh, crap, I'm sorry. Can I revise that? Can we just all know it's 03, or do I have to re-say the whole thing?
No, I think we all understand.
Sorry.
It's been moved. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
We call this for vote.
Ms. McLaughlin?
Yes.
Mr. Roosh?
Yes.
Ms. Utman?
Yes.
Mr. Warmbrad?
Yes.
Mr. Welch?
Yes.
Mr. Cho?
That motion, that request has been approved by the necessary majority to forward it on to the City Council for their review on,
August 5th.
and now we will take up ZBA-2019-Major-04. Do we have any motions regarding that? You want to go ahead again? Sure. All right.
I move that for case CBA 2019 MAJ-04, we forward this major variance request to City Council with a recommendation to approve the variance as requested based on findings outlined in this memorandum.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. We now call that for a vote.
Can I ask a question?
Hold on. Yes.
Is it possible to add something to the effect that he would post no trespassing or no parking sign on the property so that people are aware of?
I take that, you want to attach that as a friendly amendment to the,
Variant,
or
yes.
a condition?
I think we would have had to do that in the first one.
Do we need it for both of them or just for the one?
Well, one can attach conditions to a variance. The conditional use permit's already been approved. I don't know how you would change the conditions to that one.
Okay. I believe that it's been stated here by the petitioner that he will do what is necessary to have harmonious relations within the neighborhood, and I think it's been expressed that now that this property has changed hands, that conditions in the neighborhood are now changed, and I believe that should just be a friendly request that Mr. Batista posts some kind of no trespassing signs. Sounds like that would be in his interest as well, and perhaps just in all the frenzy of activity of the remodeling, it may have slipped his mind, but he said he would, and I think we should take him at his word. So with that, I think it's been moved and seconded as far as the second major variance request, so we can now call that for vote.
Mr. Roosh?
Yes.
Ms. Huetman?
Yes.
Mr. Wurmbrand?
Yes.
Mr. Welch?
Yes.
Mr. Cho?
Yes.
Ms. McLaughlin?
Yes.
That motion, that carries by the necessary majority to forward it on to the city council for their review on the same date, on August the 5th, at their August the 5th meeting. Thank you. Do we have any old business?
No,
Any new business?
no.
Anybody in the audience wish to be heard independently of what we've already discussed? This is at the point of audience participation. Hearing none. Any staff report?
No.
Any study session?
No.
And I move that we adjourn. Thank you.